subscribing to the channel, hit the like button, leave a comment, so on and so forth. Look, I'm really big on being tired of the constant complaining about inequality, poor treatment, not getting a fair shot, all of this type of stuff, especially when it comes to the world of sports. So I think today's or yesterday's development with Deion Sanders, Coach Prime or Coach Prime Time, this situation at at Jackson State, where he was able to sign a very highly coveted incoming freshman in this Travis Hunter, I think it's fantastic. And this also, I talked about this a couple of months ago when Primetime appeared on the I Am Athlete podcast, and he got into this discussion with Chad Ochocinco, Johnson, Fred Taylor was there that day, and then Channing Crowder was kind of he was reluctant to buy into 4 and 5 star athletes coming out of high school, 4 and 5 star athletes accepting to go to HBCUs or historically black colleges and universities. I'm not trying to blow your mind with scouting notes and how they rank these players and process. I don't follow incoming freshmen for the University of Michigan recruiting classes. That's not my area of expertise. So anyway, there's an article about this right now on the undefeated.com by Jean-Jacques Taylor, just talking about the signing of 5-star recruit Travis Hunter, a defensive back, shows how Deion Sanders is impacting the HBCU landscape. So the other news here is that this is Travis Hunter, as I mentioned, is a 5-star defensive back. He's the first prospect with that type of ranking to sign to an FCS team. That's below, the big time, the powerhouse universities, the blue chip schools. He's the first one to do this since ESPN started doing these rankings way back in 2006. And I talked about this last year when Jamel Hill came out and said that black players should start going to black HBCUs. And of course, I was on that in the day too. I mean, it makes sense. But of course, once she came out and said this explicitly, that's not going to go over well with the public. It's okay if all of these athletes continue to go to the mainstream institutions where you might represent 2-3% of the student body, but then the whole damn team or the majority of it is black. And so anyway, let's talk about what took place on the I Am Athlete podcast, because now people, and it's social media, so a lot of people are coming for Channing Crowder today. Feel free to do so. But Channing Crowder was just like when Deion Sanders talked about bringing these highly coveted athletes, these game breakers, these 4 and 5 star kids. He wants them to come to the HBCU. And Channing Crowder, I think he might have went to Florida. I'm not sure. Retired from the NFL. I think he played for the Dolphins. Channing Crowder was like, no. If I got a son who's a 4 or 5 star kid, I'm sending him to Nick Saban. I'm sending him to the Urban Meyer when he was at Ohio State, or Ryan Day now. I'm sending him to the big time programs and the big time conferences. And, they went back and forth on it. So all I'm saying is, we can attack Channing Crowder for his views on continuing to think and go along with how things were and how they've been. But let's not act like there's not going to be some parents that are resistant or reluctant to send their kid to an HBCU versus just going to Ohio State or Michigan or Alabama. Let's not sit here and act like Channing Crowder is lesser than now as a black man because he still is buying into, as they say, the white man's ice being colder. Um, this is the first. You know what I'm saying? This is one guy. I don't even remember what happened to the basketball player last year. Was it Thon McCore or Thon Maker or Maker Thon? One of the African cats. I think he came out of Canada, but he went to an HBCU and he was a 4 or 5 star, a one and done basketball guy. I want to say he went to Hampton, and it was a big deal. He got hurt or contracted COVID or something. The season was all messed up. Nothing even happened from that. I don't even know where that guy is now, but he was the first to do it on the basketball side. And like I said, he was projected to be a one and done kid. Here we have Travis Hunter. Obviously, there are 11 defensive starters, 11 offensive starters. When is it going to be, multiple players? And this becomes more of a regular thing. Can other coaches do it? It's a big difference in Coach Prime calling you or being on your couch, and talking to your parents. They see this guy on Aflac commercials. They remember him from the NFL. Obviously, he does all of his. He's on Barstool Sports. He has a very active social media presence. It's gonna be easy for Deion to go in here and get some of these guys. But what about whoever is at FAMU or Tuskegee or Howard or whatever? How are those guys, or Delaware State or something? How are those guys going to be able to compete? Now we know Eddie George is in Tennessee State or something. Hugh Jackson just became the head coach at Grambling State. So my thing, what I was talking about earlier, the hell with waiting for the NCAA numbers. For there's no black coaches at very many of the the bigger schools. Hell, I don't even know, what do we got? Shaw at Stanford, Tucker at Michigan State. I don't even know who else is out there right now. It's not a lot. But the hell was sitting here complaining about all of that. All of these guys who went and made some money and made a living out of being out from the game, go to one of these schools and put your flag in the ground and do your thing. Which brings us to an interesting point here with what's going on with primetime, as Jackson State is getting ready to play for this SWAC championship or something. And he made all this noise this year for the program. It was a couple of weeks ago. It was listed as one of the fastest growing like brands in college football and whatnot. What happens when Florida State or the U, Miami, or one of these other prominent schools? What happens when they come and offer a deal to Deion to come take over their program? And what does Deion say when you got $7 or $8 million on the table for 6 or 7 years? What do you do? What do you look? We just saw with Brian Kelly deciding to leave Notre Dame to go down to Baton Rouge or whatever and take on a Southern draw and introduce himself as the new coach of the LSU football team. So when Deion is able to get paid a significant amount of money and to make things easier recruiting kids to a bigger program, to go out here and win bigger games, to compete, to conceivably compete for a national championship, what does he do when he's faced to make with making that decision? That's going to be the next, that's going to be the thing to look for in this story. And this goes back, and this is one of my issues with LeVar Ball, when some people were ready to to take him seriously and regard him as being this as being something and beyond just being out for himself and his kids. But before his youngest son and before Leangelo were able to get into before they were eligible for the NBA, he went out here and started his league, and he had the ball, whatever that his brand was, the big baller brand or whatever. But he did all of these things and got other people involved to help him out. But as soon as his sons could go to the NBA, I ain't heard nothing else about whatever the name of that league was, the JLA or whatever that he started, the junior, whatever it was. So that's what I'm just saying. You can't go in here and get involved with these kids at this stage of their life when they're trying to be groomed or to position themselves to go chase becoming a professional athlete, especially in the NFL, which is extremely difficult. You can't sit here and be half in, half out. Or as soon as I get the right call, I'm out of here. You affect all of these other kids who are believing in you. So that puts Coach Prime in a very peculiar situation, especially if you look at his daily posts on his Instagram account when he's making a lot of strong statements about manhood and about walking upright, living upright, and all of that type of stuff. Uh, and it becomes somewhat obvious what the decision is at some point. You know, yeah, you can do great things for Jackson State, and you can impact a lot, and you can spearhead a bunch of change, and you can be a trailblazer, and maybe you can get some of these schools on TV, that weren't considered for TV previously. By the way, I see TNT has like a double header for some HBCUs. TNT is gonna broadcast. I just saw that commercial the other night. I thought that was interesting, but yeah, it's just totally got off what I was trying to finish, but it's just gonna be it becomes pretty clear that yeah, you can do all of these great things and affect all of this change by staying at Jackson State, but at the same time, you could also affect a lot of great change by going to one of these bigger institutions, and you still could be helping young black men become young men, and be successful on and off the field and all. You can still go do that with if that's part of his ministry. Uh, so there's really no drawback or downside if he was to choose to take that back. I wouldn't be mad at the guy. And we can't sit here and believe that this change is going to take place and that the old school, the old guard isn't going to make some kind of adjustment to stay in the game and to continue to monopolize this type of talent coming into their campuses. They're not going to stand for this. They're going to do something. So how this plays out all the way around, it's very interesting to me. Lastly, with kids deciding to make this type of move, and to the thought of black kids, of black athletes, high school athletes starting to make this decision. I don't think this is a matter of. I know some people might throw out here some kind of reverse racism or something. How could you choose to only go to a black institution or go play for a black coach? That's not fair. I know that type of reasoning is on the horizon. I understand that. I'd say, what was that word I came across? Poppycock. It's bullshit. We have all of these financial stories and discussions nowadays about dollars staying inside of the community of certain communities. How long does a dollar stay inside of a black neighborhood or community in comparison to Asian neighborhoods and Latino neighborhoods and white neighborhoods and suburbs and whatnot. Um, this would be sound business, honestly. What's going on? I don't really know what that meant, but thanks for the comment. But what I'm getting at is this. I just read that article when I talked about it on here maybe 5 or 6 months ago, 3 to 6 months ago. There was a lengthy article on ESPN.com about the black football players who went to go play at Iowa. And these young men talked about being just culture shock. You know, they felt disrespected. They were told they couldn't wear their hair a certain way, or they shouldn't wear their hair away a certain way. They shouldn't conduct themselves like this. They shouldn't do this. They can't do that. You can't play your music in our weight room, so on and so forth. Now, I'm not saying that it's a completely horrible thing to go somewhere where there are different standards for how you conduct yourself, or different standards for your appearance. I'm not saying you should go into a weight room and on the stereo system in there. I'm not saying that you should go in there and blast music with all kind of profanity in it because that's acceptable to you. You know, you need to put a headset on for that. So I'm not talking about learning how to live with others who don't have the same, who don't have the same norms as where you come from. When you leave your house, when you leave your home, I'm not talking about that. But if you go to a program and somebody tells you you need to cut your hair or something, you shouldn't have your dreads or whatever popular style of wearing your hair in for people in your community, people that look like you go to Iowa and somebody that don't look like you tell you what you need to be doing. I'm not with that. So what I'm saying is, instead of going to like the bottom tier schools in the power conferences, yeah, you should consider staying home and going to some place that's gonna accept you. That makes perfect sense. Like I don't have to go here, and so they had several former Hawkeye players in the article, and they said, well, Ohio State didn't want me, Penn State didn't want me, and Michigan, I'm gonna throw them in there too, but Michigan didn't want me, but I wanted to be in the Big Ten. I wanted to play against Big Ten competition so that it would improve my draft status or give me a chance to make it to the next level. So I totally understand it. But again, to go out here in some of these different campuses across the country, to where, the demographics might be that your ethnicity only makes up 2% of the local population. Why? Like, why go out there? Why go subject yourself to that? Maybe you probably should consider a better alternative, which might be going to Jackson State or Grambling or wherever Eddie George is in Tennessee. Maybe you should choose that. Makes sense to me. Some of these individuals, I'm gonna tell you this, and I'm gonna get off of here because I think my lunch break is over. Simple as this. My senior year going into to my senior year playing basketball, the Fab Five was everything in basketball. And they came in with the long shorts and the black socks and shoes. My junior year, my team voted to wear the black socks and shoes. I was happy. I was on varsity and cool. I looked the way that I wanted to look. That part of playing sports is you want to look how you want to look out on the field. That's how you want to express yourself and represent yourself. We get to the senior year, my team, I'm the only brother on varsity. We go to vote for what shoes we want. All of them was over the black socks and black shoe thing. We ended up with white shoes. I didn't want white shoes. I was pissed off. I wanted to look good so I could play great, or vice versa. And I got over it. And that was a very early learning experience to me about majority, majority rules or democracy or whatever. But still, I was pissed off about that. I shouldn't have had to I shouldn't have had to look how they wanted to look because that's what's hot for them. I don't look like them. I don't have the same sensibilities as them. So, I took it on the chin and had them red and white shoes on, or white and red shoes on. But I'm saying that now that things are what they are, uh, I would not willingly sign up to go play football in Iowa and subject myself to not being misunderstood. In that article, it wasn't as simple as you just can't play your music in our weight room. Some of the guys, some of the players said that they were given much stronger. They were being reprimanded a lot more stronger or punished more harshly for the same infraction as their white teammates. Uh, I'm assuming they had historical evidence of what was occurring. And honestly, at the end of the day, it don't really matter. If these dudes left the program because they felt like they were being mistreated, they didn't leave for nothing. But again, that's just one situation that I came across. I thought it was an interesting story, and again, I think it's just it goes to support. Don't sit yourself out here and go to Kansas State just to be in the Big 12 and go play and go play ball and live in Manhattan, Kansas for 4 years. And you from Virginia, somewhere in Virginia, one of the 7 cities in Virginia or whatever. Consider going somewhere else. Or where else? Iowa City or Ames or whatever the hell. Or being Des Moines, which is Iowa and Des Moines. Yeah, it's just common sense. It's common sense. So anyway, shout out to Channing Crowder. As a member of that podcast, I Am Athlete. I don't understand why in the black community, we all got to be on the same thinking at the exact same moment. Just because Channing Crowder is holding on to the way things have been done for the last 100 years or whatever, or 50 years or whatever it is, that don't mean that Channing Crowder is a bad guy or a stupid brother. Maybe he's just, he hasn't fully assessed the trend that's taking place, hasn't factored in where we are right now, what the attitudes are right now, and what Prime was trying to lay out here is what he's trying to accomplish. You know what I'm saying? Channing Crowder went through this situation 15, 20 years ago when the attitude towards that was much differently. And let's also not ignore the fact that if USC or Texas or trying not to throw none of my favorite schools in there, Auburn, let's not sit here in front if one of these schools isn't offering a scholarship to a young man along with the envelope with $50,000 in it, or $150,000 in it, or $250,000 in it. Let's not sit here and act like the big time schools aren't paying some of these kids to come to these schools. And so that's going to be another thing, that is a significant advantage to one of the what did I see earlier? PWI, predominantly white institutions. When a kid is looking at going between the two. And let's be honest, Nick Saban comes and recruits you. Ryan Day right now with the brand of Ohio State football. I guess if Brian Kelly comes to you down south, if any of these guys come in your living room and talk to you, you are going to be fascinated by that. You are going to be leaning heavily towards going to that school. And then the likelihood of playing Dabo Sweeney. The likelihood of playing in the national championship or being in the national semifinal or the college football playoffs. That's a possibility. Not a lot of these kids are just going to be rushing in here to be a part of Deion Sanders' plan and what he's trying to. Everybody's not going to have time for that. So we'll see what happens. I just think it's an interesting development. Check out this article on I haven't read it all just yet, but on the Undefeated on ESPN.com. Shout out to Travis Hunter for being a a trailblazer. Uh, it has to be something to be said about going to play for Deion Sanders, one of the best defensive backs or cornerbacks of all time, to go there and be under his guidance or receive his tutelage for 3 to 4 years. So again, Florida State, the U, Florida, they're not just gonna sit here and watch Prime get better and produce results. Because I remember before Deion Sanders left the NFL Network, he said he wanted to go coach a couple of pro teams, and then I think got around to talking about coaching college teams, and the big knock was like, well, you ain't never been a position coach. And Deion, I don't need to be no position coach. I know what I know. It's different when you say that and you're sitting in a you podcasting, or you sitting in a studio being an analyst. The decision makers, the presidents of universities and the athletic department, the hell they call it, the ADs. I can't even think of the word. That's a lot different when a guy says he wants to be a head coach and he doesn't have any track record, any performance to suggest that you can bring him in. It's kind of a hard sell, athletic director. But when a dude in 2 or 3 years, when you turn around a program and you go on 11-1 and you in the championship and all of that type of stuff, and your brand is getting bigger, you on TV, you got athletic commercials, then it's easier for one of these bigger programs to say, go to the university president and say, hey, look, I know this seems a little unorthodox or unconventional, but we need to get Deion here, and we need $10 million a year to do it, and it'll happen. When he gets presented with that opportunity, then we'll really see whether he believes what he's talking about on Instagram. Hey, my name is Wood. Let me get on out of here. Appreciate whoever that is that hung out here for the last 10 minutes with me running my mouth. Thanks for them 2 likes. Again, pay me no mind. Sports and entertainment. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.